Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us once again for another one of our interview sessions for our CDFI practitioner course. So thank you. I want to thank Kevin Rasco for being here with us today. And I would like to go ahead and start off with Kevin introducing himself and telling us a little bit about his career path and how the evolution in the credit union industry has come about for him.
And thank you, Chriselle, and thank you for the invitation to speak. So my name is Kevin Rasco, and I've been in the credit union movement for about 20 years or so. And I started as an employee of a credit union. I was a teller and working the front line, and all of the fun that comes with that. And then I was asked to move over to member services. And at the time I was going to college and to become a teacher. And it got to a point where I needed to work night shifts. So I got away from the credit union movement, changed jobs, and got the call from my former boss. He kind of jokingly said, "Hey, I think I remember treating you okay. Would you like to be my boss now?" And so he invited me to be on the board. And I served for a few years there at the board of that credit union, which was a railroad credit union. Moved to San Antonio a little bit, after that, and across the street was River City Federal Credit Union, and so I walked across the street and opened an account. Always, have been a member of credit unions since before I was born. My parents opened my first account, and that's the only place that I'll do my banking. And not long after that, they had a call for board members, and so applied, and they let me on. And so I've been on the board of two different credit unions and been an officer on both. And currently, I think I'm in year 3 of serving as chair at River City. And I couldn't see myself doing anything else. When I was a teacher, I actually taught economics and financial literacy. And so I kind of have a love and a passion for that in general. And that blends very nicely, with the credit union movement, which is all about helping people and making financial security a reality for a lot of people who would not have that otherwise.
Great, thank you, Kevin. So many parallels, in your background and your experience and now in the work that you're doing with credit unions. If you could tell me a little bit about River City Credit Union and what has been that CDFI journey for the credit union? Absolutely.
So as a credit union, we were actually struggling. We'd spent the last couple of decades in decline. And we say this jokingly and we laugh about it now, but it wasn't very funny when I came onto the board 5 years ago. The last time our credit union had a profitable year, Clinton was in office. And so, we had gone through this episode of selling off assets and kind of surviving. And we as a board decided that that was not going to be okay any longer. We did a change of leadership and a really change of philosophy. And we asked ourselves, what are we here for? What's our purpose? Do we need to just be absorbed by another credit union? And we decided, no, we think we have something unique to offer. And we decided to really focus on being a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution. And we said, we live here in San Antonio. And San Antonio, for those of you who aren't real aware, is 7th largest metro area in the U.S. and one of the poorest. The 2 poorest zip codes in Texas are right here in our city. And we said we have a real need to target a very specific group of people. We have a very large immigrant population, a very large Hispanic population here. And what we decided to do is we did a little research and found out that there's 220,000 unbanked and underbanked people that reside right here in our service area. And so what we decided to do is to focus specifically on the unbanked and the underbanked. We became a CDFI, and then we really did some deep soul searching about what that means, who we are and what we need to focus on, because if we don't find a way to differentiate ourselves, in San Antonio, there are a couple of very large multi-billion-dollar credit unions, and we just can't really compete with them. And so we decided we needed to do something different. And that's what we did. And what we have found is that that is a way for us to not only survive, but to thrive. The last couple of years have been, last year was the best year the credit union ever had. And then 2 years ago was the best year the credit union ever had. And last year by far was the best year the credit union had ever had. And we found that serving these people actually is really good for us as well. And it's a cycle that feeds on itself. And we're really excited about, what that's going to mean for us. We've gotten really deep into what it is to be a CDFI. We're also a minority deposit institution at MDI. We're a low income designee, LID, and we're Juntos Avanzamos. Together we advance. We bought into that really early, and it's really helped us center ourselves around what we need to be and what we need to be doing as a credit union.
That's great. Sounds like there's been a level of approach in really integrating into River City's strategy and their approach just on a working daily basis of how you serve your community. So thank you for that. What are some of the challenges that are foreseeable for the credit union, particularly in the community that it serves?
So our biggest challenge is educating our current members and educating our potential members. We're talking about focusing on a group of people who have been subject to some of the worst practices that can be had against an individual or a family. People who are used to hearing no, and people who are really used to being taken advantage of. So, we looked at the predatory lending practices in our city, and this is a reality for many of our members and many of our potential members. They'll walk into a car lot that will loan them the money to drive a car, but they're charging them twice what the vehicle is worth, and they're charging them 25-30% interest and fees. And the same thing happens with payday loans. We don't have members who live check to check. We have members who are much worse off than that. They're living check to check, several checks behind. And letting our members know that there is a way out. And, the challenge is in leadership, actually, it is incredibly risky to focus on this group of people and make it your core business and say, it's okay to focus on C and D or people without any credit. We look at our I-10 members that we're trying to attract who don't have any credit. And some of the things and challenges that we look at is looking beyond a number and looking at who people are and looking at alternatives to their FICO score. Anyone can set up their lending system to key off their FICO score and make a yes, no decision. And what we've decided to do is to be very intentional and very work heavy. And it's a lot of work to look at every application and have people make humane decisions about a lot of the loan applications that were coming through. And before we started this, we were denying 99% of the loan applications that came across our system. 99%. We are now looking at every month, our board has a loans outside policy section. And this is what's crazy. And I wouldn't believe it if the data didn't show it. But our loans outside policy, our most marginal at-risk members, our loan losses are a third of our in-policy loans. And the reason for that, and the challenge here is when these people make loan applications, you sit down, you do financial counseling, you make it known that that this is a very personal relationship that you're forming with this member, and show them, we got a letter from a lady month before last that we took her payday loans and her car title loan and we took them in-house and changed everything. We were saving her $435 a month. Wow. To someone who lives below the poverty line, to be able to save them, and it's $435 a month in fees and interest. That's life change. That I wouldn't mind having $435 a month. That would be, shoe money is what my wife would say, right? Money to go eat out or take a vacation, that adds up pretty quick. And it's things like that that are the reason that we're in this work. And it's challenging to center everyone around that and remind themselves, yes, this is risky. Yes, this is challenging, but that's the reason why we're here.
Oh, absolutely. And Kevin, I just want to, highlight, that there's a lot of credit unions out there that we consistently get this question about, how do we make it work? And so I'm so happy that you addressed, some of the places where there's opportunity. And I think that there'll be value in conversations going forward, especially with our practitioners that are going through this course in learning more from you and learning more from River City and what has happened or how it's been applied. So thank you for introducing us to that. The narrative, I think, is really important that we continue just to speak to that work. And so I'm really glad that you brought that forward. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I want to just really quickly highlight a congratulatory statement on behalf of River City's CDFI, what we consider to be the trifecta. You've gotten 2 grants from the CDFI fund, an RRP, an FA, plus an ECIP award from the Treasury. So congratulations on that. That's a huge accomplishment. I mean, we've seen so many dollars.
No one's more excited than we are, I promise.
So bravo and kudos, all the kudos on our behalf of Inclusiv. We just had a conversation this past week with Luis Pastor from Latino Credit Union, and he really addressed a lot of what Latino Credit Union is doing to leverage the CDFI fund capital grants and secondary capital loans from other investors to achieve growth for newly chartered credit unions in 2,000 or more than 100,000 members today. River City has just received your first CDFI related infusion of capital. Where do you see River City in 5 to 10 years because of this funding?
Great question. So what we want to do is make sure we are good stewards of this money and use it strategically. And this is what our focus has been, is around the CDFI and serving our community. And I'll tell you what we've been doing. We've actually closed a couple of branches down because they were in the wrong neighborhoods for what our new mission is. We had some branches in more affluent neighborhoods, and we've aggravated some members by closing them down. But what we've done is we're opening branches where there is a need. So we're looking at the most socioeconomically depressed areas in our city, and we're opening a big, beautiful branch right in the heart. So we did this year before last. We opened a branch in one of these neighborhoods, and what tickles me pink, I'll die with a smile on my face for this. There was a payday loan place right next door, and they closed within the first month because
Wow.
our staff would stand right outside the door, and people would be walking up to the payday loan place, say, "Hi, could we talk to you? Because we could save you a lot of money and really help you." And people walk in, and we were just completely stealing their business. And we are the only credit union in this neighborhood. You can go, a mile any direction, and the only financial institution you'll find is a payday loan or car title loan. And so there's a need in some places. And we're not just opening dinky little branches, we're opening multi-million-dollar branches that are beautiful. They look and they feel different, and they tell this community, you're important and you deserve the best. And so we open a place that they're really happy to come into. I wish I had, video and photos I could show you, but they look really nice, and our staff are trained, and we're partnering, like with the city and with other organizations to have meeting spaces in these branches where we can do financial counseling and literacy and sitting down with members and having really good conversations with them about their future. We are doing some things with this infusion of cash that would normally be very risky for us. So we're taking our allowance for loan loss and we're bumping it up considerably. And we're saying we're going to take riskier loans on marginal customers with the expectation that some people are going to default. But we're also going to find a lot of people who we're forming a lifelong partnership with, and they are going to be the best customers we've ever had. And we're finding those. In fact, one of these customers we just added to the board. It was a member who needed a PPP loan. And so we're a small credit union that did $35 million in PPP loans. Our average PPP loan, I think it was $14,000, $17,000. They were small. We did a bunch of small ones, and so it's a lot of mom and pops. And so what we're finding is we can take this money and go and serve people who don't have any other recourse, and form a really good relationship with them, finding the unbanked, the underbanked, and making lifelong members who are using word of mouth. And it's really interesting to me that some of the most marginal customers are some of the most loyal and have the best word of mouth, and bring their whole families in, bring their friends in, and say, hey, this place is different. They're doing things no one else is doing. And everyone told me no, and they tell me yes, and they treat me with respect. And when I come in, they know who I am, and I'm not just a number. And that's the kind of thing that's what we're here for. And so taking this infusion of cash and doing the most good with it we can, advertising, targeting, and serving these marginalized members and potential members, and making sure that they have a place they can go and have some financial freedom and security.
Wow, that is so, it is just a breath of fresh air to hear, the work and the impact that you all are having amongst your community. Please send me over the pictures of the branch. I would love to be able to share that with our students, our practitioners in the course. I think that's a great example of how you can really strategically think about your approach and really give that space to individuals that have, for many generations have lived on the outskirts of our, financial institutions and our systems. And it's just a great way to say welcome. So I really love that story. Thank you.
Thank you.
What kind of impact do you hope to have on the lives of your members? You've definitely addressed some of the things that you are doing, but in that 5 to 10 year kind of perspective, what are those things that you think your members will gain and your community will gain from this?
So it's actually probably the simplest answer I have. We want our members to have financial freedom and security, and that's it simply. And we believe that if we provide that to people who have been marginalized and aren't able to get what we consider to be a basic human right in our society, to have a place where you can do your banking that you trust and does not take advantage of you, and gives you products, financial products that are competitive with one of my favorite sayings. I believe your cohort Pablo said this in a meeting. He says it's very expensive to be poor.
Yeah.
It's very expensive to be poor, and that is something we're aiming to fix in long term. What we hope we can do. This is a reality. You don't have to make a lot of money to be financially secure. You just have to be smart with the money that you make. And if we can help our members with our financial products have that available to them, then that's what we're doing. When we give someone a loan, we also help them have savings, even if it starts really, really small. We're going to give you a loan. We're also going to help you start a real savings account and teach you how to not touch it and have money set aside for a rainy day. Basic common sense things that middle class families take for granted that those in poverty don't get, like having a month's salary in cash in your savings account. The average American family cannot survive a $400 windfall right now, and that's not okay. That's just simply not where our members need to be. We need to counsel them and provide things so that they can survive a hit, they can survive a medical emergency. And it's not the end of their financial world. They don't default on loans for their cars and their homes, and they can weather rough times ahead.
And then how, just to kind of round out our conversation on the capital side, how will these capital grants and investments help River City to achieve those ends?
So location is the old marketing term. We're about to drop $3.5 million on a new branch in a very distressed neighborhood. We opened one 1.5 years, 2 years ago in a similar situation, and we're looking at opening a third. In our city, there are specific neighborhoods, and sorry, I was a social studies teacher, but there are redlined neighborhoods, that the banking industry is responsible for some of the state of our neighborhoods because you couldn't get a loan on a home because they were the redlined neighborhood. And so we feel we have a moral obligation to go in and right some of that wrong. There are specific areas in our city that are that way because of the way that they've been banked historically. And we feel that we can come in and make a difference and right some of those historical wrongs and, find these specific areas. If you are someone who lives in generational poverty and you're using public transportation, having a branch in proximity to where you live and where you work is absolutely key in being able to access the locations and those services. And everyone wants to be online, everybody wants to be able to do all the online banking, and we focus on that, but we still feel that there is a place for a physical location that our members can walk in and sit down and have a conversation with somebody. Or we still have members who just will not take a picture of that check on the app and deposit. There's a lot of people who just will not do that. And so to have a place where they can walk in, sign the back, and hand it over is still important to a lot of our members. And so having a really nice, safe place for them to come in and do that is key, we believe, for the future. And our capital grants are going to let us open some of those branches. It's going to let us market specifically to these populations, and it's going to allow us to take some bigger risk for these populations. What we have found is that it's not as risky as we thought it was going to be, but if it turns out that it is, there's a cushion that these grants and capital infusion will allow us to weather. We were an organization who was hovering around 6% in our capital ratio a few years ago. And so we were able to climb up to almost 9% through our efforts. And with this capital infusion, now our cap ratio is like up at 15%. It's ridiculous. And so when an organization has that much cushion, we need to be giving that money back to our members. And that's what our intention is to take that money and to put it back into our membership, because that's what we're here for. We're not here to turn a profit. We're here to serve the members that we have. I'll give you a great example. We're basically taking our NSF fees from 30 and cutting them down to 15. And our board is actually going to go crazy. We may want to push it down lower than that. That is going to eliminate a lot of our revenue. But the conversations we're having as a leadership team is we're not here to make money off our members in that way. That is not what our mission is. So we want to push we want our income from fees to be almost non-existent. You have to have a little bit to discourage members from using those services, but that's not how we need to make a living. We want to make a living through better financial products. If you want to borrow some money, great, we'll earn some interest off you, but not through things like NSF fees.
Great, and that's a wonderful example. Thank you for sharing that. And just to kind of talk a little bit, shift directions just a bit, how has your CDFI journey led to any partnerships or affiliations to scale your CDFI work?
Sure. So, as I mentioned before, we're participating in the Juntos Avanzamos, Together We Advance, and it's about serving and empowering Hispanic and migrant consumers. We are also partnering with the National Association of Latin Community Asset Builders, and that is specifically targeting small business loans. So a need that we see in our community is that we have a very large Hispanic population who do not have access to business financial products and services. A great example is a gentleman wanted to open a restaurant and he could not secure financing anywhere. So through our partnership with National Association of Latin Community Asset Builders, I'm going to get that out, we're able to partner with them and identify some people who have great ideas and just aren't able to secure financing. And to think about it, this is someone who is going to open a business, employ a lot of people, and to really elevate the community that they live in. People who live in these communities have ideas to lift themselves up, open businesses, live the dream. We need to be there to partner with them to help make that happen. And what we find is when you partner with someone to make their dreams come true, they become your best customers and they become your best advocates. And they become enthusiastic partners in the mission of what your organization is. And like I mentioned before, one of these individuals we just brought onto the board. just so enthusiastic about what the credit union did for him and bragging to everyone who would listen. We said, we got to bring this guy on and, make him part of the board because he is who we are trying to serve. And he is who we're trying to be. Also partnering with organizations like the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and there's about a dozen organizations. I can't think off the top of my head that we would want to talk about, but anytime you can find an organization that wants to partner with you to serve these members, we're open to say, yeah, let's sit down, let's have lunch, let's partner up and let's find a way to serve the community. Because what we find is that many of these partners have great ideas and have needs that we maybe aren't aware of. And all of us together tend to have a much better approach to making sure that we find where the cracks are in our community so that we can find those people who are not receiving the services that they deserve and find a way to provide those services to them.
That's great. That is so great. Kevin, of course, first, I just want to say thank you for being on with me today. And just to kind of end our conversation, if you could give just a couple of words of advice about two CDFI credit unions that are thinking about CDFI certification. If you could just give a couple of words of, inspiration, advice about the CDFI and based on your experience, that would be great.
Sure thing. So I guess the first thing I would say is that when we embarked on this, it was a little bit scary, or that's a lie. It was a lot bit scary. We were a financial institution. Like I said, we were in decline for decades. Financially, we were not very healthy. Our auditors were getting really impatient with us. And, we were starting to have conversations about having to merge to get out of it. And, it was very scary. But what we said is, why are we here? What are we here for? And so the advice I would give is to center everyone on your team around who you are and who you want to be and taking a really hard look. And so, we had some people on the team who are veterans and taking a really hard look at, well, what we are doing is not working. Let's change what we're doing because the system is perfectly designed for the results that we're getting. And we weren't happy with the results we were getting. So we needed to redesign the system. So centering everyone around a mission, a vision, and some goals. It sounds a little cliche, what's your mission, what's your vision, what's your goals, but really seriously getting down into what those mean and getting the whole leadership team to agree to that. And so, executive leadership partnering with your board and making sure everyone agrees and everyone's on board. We did unanimous consent before we moved forward with a lot of this. And maybe it was the makeup of our leadership that it worked out, but that unanimous consent allowed us to not hesitate because the worst thing you want to do is dip one toe in, try it out for a little while and then say, this isn't for me, and then back out. We went in it and it took a couple of years to implement it. And it was a scary couple of years. Our cap ratio dipped almost down to 6%. It was just almost there. And we were below 7% for a couple of years. And just belief that if you do what's right, if you serve your community, it will be worth the time and the effort. Of course, the grants and the secondary capital are really, really nice. That's not the purpose, and we didn't count on those things, but we're happy to receive those things. You never want to turn away free money, but not planning for those things, but being really grateful when they do come across because it opens the door to what we were doing before. Let's do it on steroids. We were taking some risk. Let's take a lot of risk. We were trying to get into this community. Now we are, now we're going to, instead of opening a little branch, so it's really funny. We found an old Burger King and we're turning that into a branch. And my biggest concern is, can we get the smell out? But because there's no financial institutions in this neighborhood, none exist. There's a lot of fast food. There's a lot of payday loans, but no financial institutions. So we found an old restaurant and it's a little scary. So, paint a picture in your mind. This building is vandalized. It's dilapidated. All the windows are broken. There's, gang graffiti all over the outside of it. And we're going to open a beautiful branch. I mean, beautiful. It's as nice as they can come. And what we found is that the community really appreciates that, and it will draw members in. Our new branches we're opening in our most depressed neighborhoods are the ones that are bringing in new members, and bringing in new members that use our products and services and benefit from them. And so the advice I would have is stay the course and believe in it, because it can work, it can happen. It's what has saved our credit union. I don't think we'd be here. I don't think I'd be talking to you if we hadn't made the decision to go CDFI, to go MDI, to go LID, and to really absolutely focus, wholesale on this is who we are and this is what our work is.
Well, Kevin, I'm just in awe. Like this past 20 minutes has been fantastic. I'm going to have to thank Pablo an extra time for sending you my way. I think it really aligns with the efforts that we're trying to kind of infuse with our practitioners in this course is really like there is no end. Like if you continue to be creative and strategic, there is additional things that will come, in the future. And so I think, we have a lot of credit unions that have had CDFI certification for a while and some that are brand new. And so I think this conversation is just going to open the door for some of those maybe conversations within their own credit union. So I absolutely appreciate the time that you've spent with me today. And I thank you for being on the call.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if you need anything else, give me a call.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of the day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.